God is faithful. Can anybody agree with that right now and tell somebody God is faithful? He said, listen, Habakkuk, I don't care what you feel about what you see. The fact is that I've been faithful to you guys since the beginning. All the way back to Abraham, I've kept you through wilderness, through wars, through famine, through all kinds of issues. I'm faithful regardless of whatever you see. God is faithful because his character never changes and his word never fails. Understand here, he puts them in a unique posture because his glory will be revealed eventually in all of the earth. He teaches in verse 14, and the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, and as the waters cover the seas. Meanwhile, in all of this, understand I'm still in control. That's how he closes the chapter by literally saying that the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silent before him. So instead of looking around and asking God a lot of questions, look and lay a hold on his assurances. If he made you some promises, that's what you're supposed to be talking about. Are y'all hearing me? Look at somebody and say, if God made you a promise, that's what you're supposed to be talking about. You're not supposed to be talking about how bad it is, how difficult it is. You're supposed to be talking about the promises you're expecting to happen. Look at somebody and say, stand on his promises. Stand on. Listen here, you got to go. I don't know, maybe I'm by myself in here, but if I can get just a few of y'all to join me here, talk to your neighbor and say, I'm going with the promise. Go with the promise. I'm going with the promise. Not a whole lot of y'all. Get somebody a high five. Say, go with the promise. Go with the promise. If God said he's going to do it, I'd rather deal with what God said than you give me a prognosis of what you think is getting ready to happen next. Somebody here, help me. Just tell your neighbor, go with the promises. And here is then Habakkuk here, because a prophet or a seer or a lookout, he says, I'm going to wait and see what God is going to say after I ask them this difficult question. And this is why I'm coming this way to you, because you got some questions too. You got some things you want God to answer. You got some matters that you want God to fix. You got some circumstances that you need God to give you some answers for. And here it is. You've seen it. You looked at it. You now decided you ain't gonna fuss about it, but now God, I'm waiting to see how you gonna answer my situation. Understand this, how God does it, because he put you in a place where you have to get rid of all the knuckleheads around you and get on your watch. And this is how God begins to use you, because he can't use you while you off your watch. Get out the street and get on the tower. Get out of the corner and get up in the middle of the place where you can see what's going on. Stop hanging in low places and go high, so you can see what's getting ready to come to you. Habakkuk says, I will stand on my watch and set me on the tower, and I will watch to see, hallelujah, what he will say to me. Somebody here, talk to your neighbor. I think something is about to come. Look at your neighbor and say, I believe something is about to come. True to his profession, Habakkuk, being a prophet and a spokesman of God's revelation, understood the dynamics of being a real spokesman. What is the dynamics? You see, God's real spokesmen know that they have to wait on revelation. People who really know God know that you don't just come up with it off your head. You don't want to ever say what God hasn't said. You got to wait on, somebody just talk to you and say, wait on your revelation. Don't make it up because you need to convince somebody you got something that everybody else don't have. Wait and make sure that whatever you say is what God is saying. Sometimes people don't understand why I put some things in cruise control, because God says, wait, it's going to show itself. So sometime I wait until he tells me to speak up again. Understand, you have to notice these three gifts of communication. You see, dreams release our experiences. Prophecy releases our awareness. But vision releases our insight. And God then will give you a vision so you'll know what you have to deal with next. In verse 2, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain upon the tables, that he may run that read it. First of all, he got to be able to write it, though. Talk to your neighbor and say, you got to write it. It's time out now for trying to have a verbal conversation with the future without having a statistical analysis of putting down what God has given you so that you can go back and remind yourself, this is what God said, and if I leave here, this is what God said, and if he takes me on, this is what God says. If you're too lazy to write it, why should he give you any more revelation? You write it, you put it where if you don't run with it, somebody else can run with it. If God said it, it's valuable enough for you to put it in print. Somebody that'll help me just talk to your neighbor and say, there's some stuff you need to go and put in print for your family. Go and tell them. There's some issues you need to put in print for your family. God shows some stuff to you. Your children will never know your journey, your valley, the valleys you went through and the hills you had to climb. If you don't put it in print, you got to write it down and say, here's my memoirs. This is how I made it. This is how I went through. So at the end of the day, if God take you out of here, they can look at your memoirs and say, if he made it through that, if she made it through that, I can make it too. Write the vision. Somebody help me preach here. Talk to your neighbor and say, you got to write it. You got to write it. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'd rather you leave me the vision than leave me a chair. Leave me a car. Leave me a ring. I don't need that stuff. I need you to tell me how I can make it. Write the vision. Somebody to help me just talk to your neighbor and say, write the vision. Now to write it, you got to first imprint it on your own mind. I don't know who I'm talking to today. You got to make it more clear to yourself. One of the reasons you write is because when God shows you stuff, you don't have total clarity yet yourself until you start working it out. He makes sure that you never get clarity until you're willing to do the work to get the whole picture. So you may say, I think I see this, but you never get a whole in until you begin to write that vision. Talk to your neighbor and say, write that vision. You got to hand it down. That's why it has to be written. Don't you hide from your family, from your friends, from those God gives you charge over, the wealth that's inside of you. Somebody asked me the other day, well, Bishop, you got another book coming out. How many books you going to write? As many as I can. Because I believe that when God gives you a truth and when God gives you a revelation, it's timeless in its essence. And when God gives you something timeless, why should I hold up to it and let it die with me? I know I ain't going to be here forever. I ain't even planning to be here forever. I know I got to go somewhere, but I'm going to leave a legacy from where I am. So when I get here, when I leave this place, you can still Google my name and come up with some truth that God gave me about life. Now, what you gonna do with yours? Somebody help me just find 5 people. Tell them, you gotta write the vision. God ain't gave you an entrepreneurial mind. He has not given you a mind that has great wherewithal, and you keep everything in your mind and put it in your closet and hide it under your pillow. You got too much going on for you for nobody else to know how to handle it if something happens to you. Write the vision. You're holding somebody else's future in your head and heart. Don't tell somebody you're holding somebody else's future in your head and heart. No, I want you to think about that. I don't want you to just say it. I want you holding somebody else's future in your head and heart. The fact is that if my daddy didn't share with me, I wouldn't have nothing to say to you. And you never met him. But what if he had left me out? I would have nothing to say to you. Now, what do your children have that's making them live? What do they have that's going to say that they can make it once you gone? No. Want to cry over that. Cry over that. Because it's your obligation to make sure, whether they want it or not, that they have access to it. You don't let children make up their decision about how they're going to grow. Men who lead your families got to be Christian. They got to believe. hold on. Y'all looking at me, but well, what about all the other stuff? Believe what I believe. This is what got you blessed. You can't believe what I believe, then we're going to have some issues. We have on so much we can do together. You know, you got to do something else. You got to do something else. I can't leave money and life and stuff to people who don't walk where I walk. I know I ain't going to be here. I changed my papers. Anybody in my family who don't believe in God, I'm not taking what God blessed me with and giving it to a heathen. Even if he came from my own, or she came from my own loins. Oh boy, y'all, it's hard for y'all, ain't it? It's hard for you, ain't it? It's hard. Why? Because, see, God blessed you to perpetuate his kingdom. If his kingdom is literally in your heart, then you don't separate your desire, your will, and your future from that. God made me put some people in my policy who part of ministry. And the church. Put the church on my policy that I won't see roll on after I'm gone. Woo, that sounds crazy to y'all, don't it? You put the church? Yes, because the church affects saving lives. I can't give it to somebody who's not going to keep my mission in life. If God bless me, I got to make sure I'm a blessing to what